Hello everyone, greetings of the day. I, Mrs. Usha Vasani, welcome you all to RKC Online Social Studies class. I am back with another edition of chapter number 15, The Coming of the British. This is the seventh part of the chapter. I hope you are finding this chapter interesting. So let us begin with today's learning. Students, today's learning objective would be to know about the partition of Bengal, to know about the policy of divide and rule, to know about the formation of Muslim League, and ultimately to know about the Swadeshi and boycott movements. So this would tell us about today's learning. So we are going to talk about these topics today. Now let us get connected to the chapter. Students, in previous video we talked about the revolt of 1857 and came to know that it was also known as Sepoy Mutiny, as it was actually started by a brave soldier, Mangal Pandey, who dared to oppose the wrong intentions of Britishers and fought against the prejudices happening with the Indian soldiers. We also discussed the causes and effects of the revolt of 1857, which later came to be known as the First War of Independence. It started from Meerut by the Indian soldiers. Then we also discussed about the formation of Indian National Congress in 1885. We also discussed about the contribution of some of the social reformers in reforming the Indian society, which was full of evil practices during that time. INC, that is Indian National Congress, was the first political party of Indians. People from different areas joined the Congress party. But there were two groups in the party. Some elderly members believed in prayers and petitions, who were known as moderates, meaning they believed in British sense of justice and felt that reforms in the Indian system would take place soon. Whereas the younger member of the Congress disagreed with them. They wanted immediate action. They believed that the British could be overthrown only by force, and they were known as radicals or extremists. We discussed this and tried to understand the Indian history in detail. Now let us talk about the journey of India's pre-independence phase and try to understand the sacrifices of lakhs of Indians who gained freedom, and so now we are able to breathe in free India. So children, let us catch up with the journey after the formation of Indian National Congress. In 1905, the province of Bengal was divided into two. Lord Curzon, who was the Viceroy of India in 1899 to 1905, followed by the policy of divide and rule and partitioned Bengal into two parts between the Hindu-dominated and Muslim-dominated areas. We will discuss each point in detail. So first let us know who was Lord Curzon and from where did he come. Students, he is Lord Curzon whom you can see on your screen. He divided, meaning he partitioned Bengal in 1905 into Hindu and Muslims as a divide and rule policy. 42 years later, India divided into Pakistan, India and Bangladesh. Communal riots still happen today. We still see that many people from Pakistan and people from India still have some or the other issues and rivalry among each other. So, who had sown the seeds of rivalry among the people of India by dividing them into Hindu and Muslim? So, first, let us know something about him, that is Lord Curzon. The East is a university in which the scholar never takes his degree. George Curzon, the Viceroy designated of India, told an old Etonian dinner in 1898. He was so shrewd in speaking and talking that in East, if a person has done his education or he has completed his university education, that scholar never takes his degree. His work and his personality shows about his degree. That is what he meant to say. It's a temple where the suppliant adores but never catches sight of the object of his devotion. I know that I have everything to learn. I have, perhaps, many things to unlearn. But if the test of the pupil be application, and if the test of the worshipper be faith, I hope that I may pass through the ordeal unscathed. That was what he was so confident about himself. Brilliant, cultivated, and witty, and elitist. Curzon had already been to India in 1880s and 1890s. He loved the country dearly, but he was also a convinced imperialist who believed in benefits of Western civilization. He would not escape unscathed means he was a person with lot of skills and lot of brilliance, but he was very witty and self-centered for his own country. So he wanted all the benefits, but he wanted or he believed in the benefits of only Western civilization. So finally, he thought of dividing Bengal. So partition of Bengal happened under the policy of divide and rule. 16th October 1905, that is 1905, Lord Curzon was the Viceroy of India. His aim was to have efficient administration, but the real reason was to crush the nationalist movement and divide between Hindus and Muslims. We will study in detail about the intentions of Lord Curzon. Children, first let us understand what was divide and rule policy. The divide and rule policy was a strategy used by the British to weaken the Indian powers by creating a gulf between the two different communities of India. When the different groups of populace fought each other and weakened themselves, they could easily be taken over by the British. The best example of modern Bihar, or rather, the best example of the divide and rule policy is partition of Bengal in 1905. Bengal, the state, comprised parts of modern Bihar. Nowadays we know it as Bihar. West Bengal is again a different state, and Bangladesh is altogether a different country now. And the northeast part of India, that was the whole area known as Bengal before independence. And it was a strong state where nationalism was becoming stronger and stronger day by day. So Lord Curzon devised a plan to spread hatred among Hindus and Muslims by dividing the state into two halves. A western part that was a Hindu, the western part was a part where there was Hindu majority, and an eastern half which would be a Muslim majority. The reason given to them was better administrative feasibility. It was, however, clear that this wasn't the real reason, because it would be better to divide the state on linguistic lines into three states like Bihar, Bengal, and Northeast. There was no need actually to divide the community, saying that this part would be having Hindu majority and east part would be having the Muslim majority. There was no necessity of dividing the part of West Bengal into Hindu majority state and Muslim majority state. This was a clear intention that Britisher wanted to divide the unity of Indians. All this was happening because now the Indians have started becoming united. They have started forming political parties, as we discussed earlier that in 1885 already there was a formation of political party called Indian National Congress. So now Britisher had to use some other strategy to break the unity of Indians. Now, because of the partition, people were very unhappy. So, the official excuses of the partition of Bengal were Bengal was too large a state geographically. Its population was too large. The second excuse was the partition would bring administrative efficiency. The third reason which was given was that the real reason was that Bangalore at that time was India's most politically conscious state and a home of many nationalist leaders. Partition was meant to strike a blow at the unity of Indians in Bengal and weaken the national movement. So actually their aim was to weaken the national movement taking place in India during those times. Lord Curzon took the initiative and also partitioned Bengal. But what happened? What was the result of that partition? The partition was vehemently opposed by the masses. They started an anti-partition movement on 7th August 1905. On this day, Anand Mohan Bose addressed a huge public gathering of almost 50,000 people at the Calcutta Town Hall. Here, resolutions of some movements to be launched were passed. The movements spread like wildfire throughout Bengal, and all classes of people joined the movement, was eminently opposed by the mass. The other result of partition was the formation of Muslim League. The ideological the ideology of political exclusiveness in the name of religion gave birth to All India Muslim League in the session of All India Mohammedan Educational Conference held in Dhaka, which is the capital of Bangladesh. At that time, it was just eastern part of Bengal and it was not a separate country, but now it is a separate country, that is Dhaka. The All India Muslim League was finally set up on December 30th, 1906. The Muslim League was formed in December under the leadership of Nawab Salimullah Khan in Dhaka. Aga Khan joined it soon after, and Muhammad Ali Jinnah joined the Muslim League in 1913. Students, now the reason given behind the partition of Bengal we discussed, but though they gave, means the Britishers gave lot of reasons, thousands of people protested against the partition. Because of this massive protest, the British were forced to reunite the two parts in 1911. But it had already created a divide between the two communities. Now the Indian National Congress members thought that they need to strongly think about some other movements which would take a strong stand to throw British out of the country. So the two important events of the Indian nationalist movement were the launching of Swadeshi movement in 1905 after the partition of Bengal was decided. They had a simple principle, meaning what was Swadeshi movement all about? This movement had a very simple principle that British made goods were boycotted and people were asked to buy Indian made or Swadeshi goods instead. And that also led to the establishment of textile mills, banks, soap and pen factories in India, and because of this the factories started flourishing and British made goods were thrown out. So this was the movement which played an important role in the nationalist movement. There was another movement which was launched, was boycott movement, meaning all the British made goods were boycotted and all the Indians willingly they threw away all the British made goods in the center of the city in bonfires. Students and women also joined the movement in large numbers. Schools were established where the traditional education system was followed. The movement spread to other parts of India. Crowds were attacked by the British authorities, hit with lathis and bullets and put into the jails, but it did not deter them, means the Indians had completely made up their minds that it has to be perfect protest or the perfect nationalist movement if we want other people to go out of our own country. But finally, the British agreed to bring in some reforms. Actually, this was all because they were not making any change in the reforms which were set by them. So finally, the British agreed to bring in some change in the reforms. But soon after, the First World War broke out in 1914. The British asked the Indians to help them fight the war. The Indians helped British, thinking that British would make changes after the war ended in 1918 and give them their freedom. But instead, the British passed stricter laws such as Rowlatt Act and tried to strengthen their control over India. Now, why did Indians help British? They thought that when we have raised a question to British that uh, uh, that they should make some change in the reforms, so this led to make or force the British to bring in some changes and reforming the setup of the political party and include some of the Indians in that. But solely Indian people helped them in the war situation. But British turned out to be very selfish and they bounced on Indians with the double throw or double stricter laws such as Rowlatt Act, and they wanted to still strengthen their control over India. So children, this was all about this chapter. We studied from the beginning about the different the different phases, the different parts in which history is divided, that is the ancient, medieval and modern, and we studied all the topics under modern history. So in 1498, Vasco da Gama discovered a sea route and he came to India. Then there was the establishment of English East India Company in 1600 century. There was a Sepoy mutiny which broke out in 1857, which was also called as the Revolt of 1857. Also, it was the first war of independence in India. The Indian National Congress was established in 1885, and then there was a partition of Bengal in 1905 led by Lord Curzon. Then the Swadeshi and boycott movements were launched in 1905, and this was a turning point in the Indian nationalist movements. So children, this is the lesson, or this is the journey of the coming of British to India. Now, what happens after the First World War took place? They promised us that they would bring in some changes into the reforms, but they did not live up to their words. So, what happens after that? That we will read more about it, more about this movement. What was the next stage of this movement in the Gandhian phase? Then there was entry of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. So we will study all that in the next phase of the learning. So this is all about the chapter of the coming of the British. So children, this is all about today's learning. Thank you and stay safe. See you soon with another learning video. Till then, keep learning.